is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars, Season 2, Episode 10, One Angry Veronica. In this episode, somebody has stolen the Lily Kane sex tapes like a fucking jerk. And it turns out Meg is pregnant with Duncan's baby, and she's awake for a little while. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to this show, everybody. I am Natasha, and many, many thanks to Agnes, who is present here in the chat for commissioning this episode. Yeah, guys, so there is a lot going on here. First of all, I would like to do an investigation on how many plots in different TV shows, how many of them wouldn't work out if it turned out that the United States had socialized medicine. Because we find out in the end that Leo is the one who stole these tapes because he has a little sister that he dotes on who has Down syndrome, and they cannot afford to take care of her the way that they need to. And so he has decided that he is going to steal these tapes and sell them for money and use that money to help pay for her care. And the number of plots that revolve around the very real issue of people not having proper medical care or the money to provide proper medical care. That's a real issue. And I think that I wish that got looked at more in this episode than it does. And I totally get why it wasn't. It's not the priority. I really do. I get it. It's not necessary for the show. But I wanted it to be. And it makes me so upset to know how true this sort of story probably is. That there are a lot of people out there probably taking big risks, committing crimes, doing things that are dangerous, or, in this case, Leo steals these tapes that are a really big piece of evidence. And he tries to comfort himself with well, you've seen the tapes, Veronica's seen the tapes at this point, Logan has also seen the tapes. We don't need to worry about whether or not it's going to be brought to trial at all. This piece of evidence, everyone is aware it did exist, and people have actually watched it themselves. But I can't help but think something is going to happen. I'm sorry, guys. There's a fly hovering right in front of my face. It's driving me nuts. And I wonder if there isn't some sort of something that the trial lawyers could do because of the fact that these tapes are gone to try and spin the whole thing. Because the assertion is that Lily was being filmed without her knowledge. She found the tapes. She stole them and took off. And Aaron Eccles retaliated against her for stealing them and killed her because she wouldn't give them back. I can't help but wonder if the tapes aren't in evidence anymore. There's no way to prove that she didn't know the cameras were there. And if they can't prove that, that's a problem, because it could otherwise just be like a he said, she said, but, she didn't say because she's dead now. I'm just really curious about how this could wind up actually blowing up in their faces. I'm a little concerned because I feel like Leo is very flippant about the effect that this could have. And a girl was murdered, dude. And I really do understand your need for money, and that's totally valid. But this guy murdered one girl, tried to kill Veronica, and if he gets out because you fucking stole this stuff and they can't prove anything because they don't have the hard copies of the tapes, that means that you are responsible for this dude getting out and potentially continuing to threaten Veronica, who is responsible for putting him away. Excuse me, having a sip of water here. But I just I don't know. I think this is going to wind up blowing up in people's faces. And I have not liked Leo most of the time. And this sort of cements that for me. That he did something if he had at least treated it like, I'm going to make copies and sell the copies. But he gives someone the originals knowing that that person is more than likely going to destroy them because he knows who it is. He realizes that it's Logan. So I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able to forgive him for this. And of course he's going to lose his job. I mean, we see him handing in his badge and gun at the end of the episode. But yeah, I have been on I want to say on the fence, and that's not really even true. I have been wanting to like Leo more than I do, because I feel like somehow everyone else likes him. They seem to think that he's charming or cute or whatever. And this sort of validates my feeling like he ain't shit from the beginning. And that's not necessarily fair, because he did this for decent reasons. But I just don't feel like he thought through the overall implications, you know? So, anyway, I'm going to get into this because Veronica winds up actually, confronting Duncan about the pregnancy. I theorized last episode that I wasn't even sure it was Duncan's baby. I felt like that made the most sense, but I wasn't even positive. And Duncan says that he's sure it's hers, or it's his, it's hers. And he says there was a letter from her aunt. I guess Meg had asked to live up there and raise the baby. And he tries to tell Veronica, this isn't even about us, though. And I was so glad that she just basically puts her hand up and is like, okay, you need to stop talking. Because seriously, dude, no, you don't get to say that. If you are dating someone and that person, whether or not it was before your relationship or not, may be a parent, you should get to know that. You have the right to know that. That's not asking too much. Now, I would like to point out that we don't know for sure that it's Duncan's child, even though he thinks so, and even though later on Meg says so. I am assuming Meg is being honest with Veronica, because I don't feel like this is something that she would lie about, but she did keep the secret for quite a while and was really shitty to Veronica. So maybe she could be covering for somebody else. I think it's unlikely. I think it probably is just what it looks like. She just got pregnant by her boyfriend and, whatever. I don't know what I want Duncan to do about this, but yeah, the way he handled it, he's got to know how bad this looks, right? And I love how, Veronica is just sitting here trying to, be as supportive as she can, because she knows that he wouldn't choose to, he wouldn't choose to hurt her, of course, and he wouldn't choose to do something that's, actively irresponsible, but keeping something of this magnitude from her is really, God, how do you get past this? She manages to get past it shockingly quickly, I have to say. And winds up getting in touch with somebody at the hospital because she has a fake visitor badge, since fucking Meg's parents will not allow them to see her, that they can use to get in there. And of course, they do get caught. And of course, her parents are very angry about it. But so when she says that, he's like, Veronica. And she says, I know I'm amazing. And I'm like, not to, like, you are amazing. And the fact that you are being this cool about it so immediately blows me away. I don't think I could do it, guys. I think she's a better person than me. Also, as they're finishing this conversation, here comes Dick, who decides to talk for 5 full minutes about Christmas break before dropping the fucking bomb that Meg is awake. I guess he thinks that they know already, but it really is one of those moments that, like, hey, you buried the lead a little bit there, buddy. And the two of them are just stunned. And that's what makes them feel like they really need to go and see her pronto. She apologizes to Veronica. And I appreciated that. She realizes, she was just like, it was just seeing you with him, knowing that I was pregnant. That was really hard. And Veronica is extremely understanding about this. And she says that her parents they don't want her to get an abortion, I don't think, because I'm pretty sure that would be against their religion, but they want her to give it up for adoption. And she says, have you ever heard of the Levi Stinson Sanctuary House? And he says, no. And she says, it's horrible. Their adoption contracts are all about religious indoctrination and tough love discipline. It's almost a license for abuse. And so she says to Veronica, make sure that if anything happens to me, they are not allowed to run off with this baby. And it's almost like she knows that they're going to do something. And I have to be honest, if she's dead, part of me wants to suspect foul play, but I can't see a reason for it now. The pregnancy is out. People know about it. She's awake. It just seems like if you were going to kill her, you would have done it while she was in a coma. You wouldn't wait until she had woken up. And last episode, I had told you guys about how I had heard about an alternate ending where Veronica comes to see Meg, runs into the bathroom to hide, and hears Meg's mother and comes out of the bathroom, and Meg is laying there dead and has been smothered by a pillow, and Veronica is holding the pillow when the nurse comes in and finds Meg dead, so everybody thinks that Veronica did it. And I had said something about not wanting to say it because I was worried it was a spoiler, and I don't think it was a spoiler, but the fact that Meg does wind up dead this episode at the end after all makes me feel like it maybe was a little bit of a spoiler, but I still was surprised at the way things went, so it's probably fine. I can't imagine them handling it that way, though. I'm really glad that they didn't wind up going with that ending, because having Veronica suspected of murder in that fashion, and especially murder of, like, her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, that's fucking tawdry. People would believe that, and that's a lot to put on her as a character. So I'm glad that doesn't seem to be the case, but I'm not going to write off completely that she might be potentially seen as a culprit because of the fact that she and Duncan snuck in to see Meg. Maybe she will. But yeah, so she goes and sees her. She comes home. She's talking to her dad, and he is trying to get a sense of how she's doing today. And then finally is like, all right, so I didn't want to do this, but, and he gives her a summons to jury duty. Now, guys, raise your hand if you have had to go to jury duty, because I have not had to do this yet. And this is one of those things that I am lucky because of the position that I have, because of what I do for a living. And the fact that I don't have kids also is a huge factor. Jury duty would probably be incredibly boring and tiresome for me, but it wouldn't be something that would like completely ruin my life. But, for example, Owen has had jury duty with the job that he's got, and he works the kind of job where missing time will fuck up all of your work for about a month. So it was pretty rough for him to have to do this. And Veronica is like, oh God, like she has this reaction as if she's done it before. And I have to say that this is one moment where I'm not sure about the writing, because I feel like her reaction to this is a lot more along the lines of what like an adult would have. And I'm not sure a high schooler would have that sort of reaction to jury duty. Also, she is still in high school, and I really thought that if you were like currently in school, whether you were of age or not, they wouldn't be allowed to pull you out of class to go. But maybe they can. I don't know how this works. But yeah, I feel like if I were a high school student and I found out that I was, having to go to jury duty, that I would just be like, oh, really? That's surprising. Okay, well, I've never done this before. I wonder how this is going to go. And she has the long suffering sigh of somebody who's had to do this a bunch of times. So I'm just not sure that rings true, or maybe she's just absorbed the attitude that her father has when he has been summoned for it. I don't know. But in any case, this whole case is really interesting. So they get summoned in there, and there is a girl who is saying what she says happened is that she was raped by a couple of dudes who invited her up to their room to smoke weed. That they had been like hanging out and partying. I think they met at a bar or something. And that she went with them thinking that they seemed cool. And they got really violent with her and tried to force themselves on her. And one of them had a gun, and she took the gun away, fired a couple of warning shots, and they took off, I think is what it's supposed to be. And she threw the gun off the balcony. And Anya says, I thought American students had a week off or something between Christmas and New Year's. They do, but like jury duty doesn't fall into a week of time. Usually, like jury duty can go on for like months. If that's what you're referring to, like her having jury duty while she's off school, that's not something that can be guaranteed to fall during a break. So I would just think that she wouldn't be eligible at all, but I could be wrong about that. But this, like, obviously, I hear this story and I'm like, oh, a girl is accusing a couple of guys of raping her and people don't believe her. I'm shocked. Of course they did. Like, I'm just immediately siding with this girl. Like, yes, obviously. And yet, a lot of her story doesn't match up. The two guys whom they wound up, like, nabbing are claiming that she was a prostitute, that her pimp busted in while they were in the room with her and assaulted them, and that he then ran away and like leaped a fence. And there is video of a guy running away from the room, and he is a black man, the way that they said, and that he, like, the fact that he leaps the fence the way that they allege happened, it confirms their story over hers. And pretty much everybody in this room, on this jury, feels like this is a pretty open and shut case. This is a woman who is claiming to be a victim but in fact is a sex worker who sets up Johns to be robbed by her pimp. And the only woman in the room who has any qualms about this at all is this older lady who's sitting in the corner. She's obviously Hispanic. She's obviously seen some shit. And she is knitting and just minding her business. And she starts asking the important questions. Such as, so this dude that we see in this video running off, he ran off 11 minutes after the gunfire. So I would like to know what he was doing for that whole 10 minutes. Then they're able to like nail down who they think it was, who this girl's like, quote, pimp was. And it's an athlete who had a pretty bad injury. And this woman is like, oh, really? So if he had this injury, how is he just going around and leaping fences? And she just keeps on poking holes in the story that, if you don't look too closely, does seem to match up. And I just love this woman. She is just so like, she is putting it out. She's not saying straight up, this is what happened, or this doesn't make sense, or anything like that. She's just asking, why would a man who just beat some poor gal and shot off a gun stick around so long before getting away? She's asking a simple question, and everybody in the room stops and is like, oh, because they don't think to push it. They don't think to continue asking questions like that. And of course, everyone is motivated to get the fuck out of here and go on and be with their families for the holidays. So the fact that there is this one woman who won't find these guys innocent is at first infuriating. But as she begins to push the issue with everybody, they all start to see that there are holes in this. And more people, every time they take a vote, are starting to be like, oh, you know, this really doesn't add up, does it? So to come back to the like, let's see. Okay, I'm trying to find the exact spot because there's a place where Veronica sort of gets into it with old white guy who represents, you know, the system, basically. He's being played by this dude who's super familiar, and I can't figure out what I've seen him in. But he said it's Robbie McKinnon's father. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the spot. This dude is so annoying, too. Sorry, guys. Okay, so Robert McKinnon, the sports agent, is Robbie McKinnon's father. What does that prove? And Veronica says it proves diddly, but it begs some interesting questions about how Carnell Miles got involved in all this. He says, are you suggesting that Robert McKinnon paid his former client to take the rap for his son? And she says, it happens. Trust me. He says, what good would money do a man serving 20 years for assault? And I love this woman. What is her name? I want to call her like Constanza or something. She needs to have like a really old-fashioned Spanish name. Maria Eugenia or something like this. But he says 20 years and she starts laughing and said, 20 years? Are you kidding me? You really think they're going to do that with a pimp who slapped a hooker around? 6 months. Maybe. And Veronica says, and is my theory really any crazier than the other way of looking at it? And he says, what other way? And she says that a pimp tricking $80 hookers showed up out of the goodness of his heart to save 2 rich white boys from doing time. And this dude is real irritated and like shifts angrily in his seat a bunch of times. I hate him so much. Because, okay, guys, let's say that these guys even were found guilty. Nothing is going to happen to them. Like, whenever I get in an argument with somebody who's trying to act like women have more rights than men, or whatever the fuck people say nowadays to try and be edgy, they always try and talk about how women can ruin men's lives with a single rape accusation. When? That I always ask for a definitive answer, and I never get a definitive response. It's the sort of thing that it's especially impossible to get a straight answer if there is more than one person on the comment thread, because then the person who has started all of this bullshit can simply ignore my question and focus on everybody else. I have gotten better, if I'm the only person on the thread, to not ask multiple things at once so that they can't focus on one question and ignore the other. But if you just straight up ask, when has, like, how many times have women been able to ruin men's lives with false rape accusations? You get 3 examples or so of women who have been, like, found, who have confessed to making it up. And one of the most frequent ones that people bring up is the Duke lacrosse team. And back before I was, quote, woke, I would bring that one up all the time myself, because it was a really horrible one that I believed wholeheartedly. And I think that was part of why I would bring it up, was because I fell for it so completely that I took it personally, that it turned out to not be true. But the Duke lacrosse team, everybody believed it. But then as soon as it was revealed that this woman was lying, she got, like, more than her fair share of blowback. And those guys were treated like complete victims, and their lives were not ruined at all. And there's just this sort of, like, weird mythology out there that there are all these guys in prison for rape that weren't really guilty. And we just don't know about it because we're so willing to believe women. We have, like, men on tape raping girls on, like, high school campuses. Multiple witnesses. The entire school saw it happen, saw that the girl was drugged and unconscious, and nothing happened to these kids. So what world are these people living in when they say that this ruins people's lives? The only person whose life is ruined is the victim. And this whole thing with, like, it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating to see. And, you know, I'm not saying that false accusations don't ever happen. I'm saying that they are so far in the minority, and so, like, real accusations with tons of evidence are so ineffective that false accusations barely do anything. We have a guy who just got found guilty, confessed to raping a 14-year-old girl. No jail time, no anything. He didn't even get put on the sex offenders registry because it was his first offense, and the judge really felt like he wasn't going to do it again. Yeah, he definitely doesn't have any motivation to do it again. He realizes that he will be held so responsible if he ever does it again. I'm sure he learned his lesson because of this tough as nails judge who really held him accountable for his actions. Makes me so angry. So this dude finally admits that he is not ever going to turn in a guilty verdict. I will never vote for conviction, no matter what. You tell the judge this jury's hung. Because he believes that this Mexican slut, as he puts it, or some Mexican whore, something like that, that she is trying to ruin the lives of 2 boys from good families who were brought up right. Yeah, cool. She said, we're not going home until we reach a verdict. This guy is just such a shit. And I love Constanza, who just goes, well, okay. And she pulls out her fucking knitting and sits down and is just like, no, it's fine. I have all the time in the world. So, when this guy says, I'll never put them in jail on the word of this Mexican whore, everybody's like, okay, you know what? Maybe it's time to take a break. And one of the guys who's been on the side of innocent stands up and tells Veronica that he would like to change his vote. And this dude gets in his face. Oh, what did God speak to you? Is that what it is? I'm changing my vote too. Even lying hookers deserve a little holiday cheer, don't they? And Constanza says, are you serious? And he says, of course I'm serious. It's Christmas. Because these guys will appeal. And they'll win. And I'll sleep with visions of sugar plums, trusting their fate in a jury that doesn't kowtow to a high school cheerleader. You know what? The thing is, again, he's right. They'll appeal, and they'll win. What's amazing is that he's saying they're kowtowing when he's like, forgive me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to back it up and try and find the exact spot. But wasn't he one of the loudest voices in putting Veronica in as head of this jury? Which, I mean, does seem completely unlikely given how young she is. But yeah, I feel like he was one of the people that, because I think he didn't want to do it himself. This isn't just like, oh, we all know that she's great at this or anything like that. The sooner we get this over with, the sooner we get back to our lives. First order of business, I believe, is to elect a jury foreman. Do I hear any nominations or volunteers? Nobody raises their hand. All right, hearing no volunteer, I have a proposal. This strikes me as a fairly open and shut case. So, would anyone object to letting the young lady serve as our foreman? Be a nice chance for her to learn about civic responsibility and the justice system. So, he put her in charge because he wanted to educate her. But then, when she actually does her job, suddenly, they're kowtowing. Dude, you're the fucking one. Oh my God, I hate this guy so much. And he's so real. This is completely on brand. Y'all, I can't even tell you. I'm so irritated by this. Oh my God. So I really want this show to follow up on this. I don't think we will. If there's, actually an appeal to this case and whatnot, I doubt that that's going to be part of the storyline of the show. But I'm really hopeful that there's going to be something Veronica can do to make it so that the next jury is able to see the pieces a little bit more clearly. Because basically what they do in this jury does what the defense should have done, which is they figure out the actual sequence of events and they realize that this woman was lying about part of it to protect herself, but not about the assault. What she was lying about was that the gun belonged to the two dudes who assaulted her. It didn't. The gun was hers, but she had already been arrested. So having a gun was against her parole, and she could get in super duper trouble and wind up going back to prison because of it. So she decided to lie, say that the gun belonged to these two dudes, and then called up her friend who took the gun and ran the fuck out of there with it. And she said, "Oh, I threw it over the balcony. It's so weird that you can't find it." And just hoped that nobody would find that super suspicious because she didn't really feel like she had a lot of options. So if Veronica is able to like get in touch with the defense attorneys and be like, if you just figure out a deal for this girl to not get in trouble for having a firearm when she was on parole, or at least to get in trouble like less than she would otherwise, then this should be something like a case that's sort of in the bag for you because it's easy to prove what actually happened here and that there's a lot of holes in their story. And I know that it's not the point of the episode, but I'm just so tired of men getting away with this kind of thing that I just can't help but fixate on it and think about how she could make this work so that this fucking douchebag doesn't get the satisfaction of finding out that these boys got off scot-free in the end after all. I don't want him to see how... It's really astonishing how much rich white people try and act like, I don't have privilege, everybody could be here if they... But then they'll say things like what he's saying, where they're completely admitting to their privilege and hiding behind it. They know it's there. They try and act like they have no understanding of it. And some people maybe don't understand the extent of white privilege. But rich white privilege is a different beast. And I don't really trust any rich white person who doesn't see or says that they don't see that they have privilege. I feel like there's no way you live in that world and you aren't aware that you're treated completely differently from everybody else. You have to be aware of it. Like, you have to. If you don't notice it, then you're an idiot. That's just you being like so completely obtuse that there's no excuse for it, and it's frankly alarming. So yeah, this guy is like, I want something to happen to him, and as the only thing that we're gonna get is him being forced to change his vote this episode. Makes me sad. This is the world, though. It is. So let me back up and talk about some other stuff. The stolen tapes. The way that this all goes is Sheriff Lamb is working out in the gym at the police station when Keith comes to talk to him. Can we talk about Sheriff Lamb working out shirtless? This dude is so incredibly confusing to me. I hate him so much. He's such a douche. He's such a pain in the ass. He clearly thinks a lot of himself. The way he's flexing and staring at himself in the mirror and everything. But after the episode with Meg's sister, Baby in the Corner, I can't hate him the way that I used to. It was a real unadulterated no, fuck this guy and everything he stands for sort of hatred. And that one thing it really got under my skin, which it shouldn't, because frankly, he blackmailed a dude into getting votes for him. He's a really not reputable bad person. That's a shit thing to do. And, so I shouldn't feel this way. He doesn't deserve it. But that's where I'm at. It's astonishing how little people have to do for me to start to sympathize with them. I'm having this, or I had this throughout season 2 of Deadwood. There's a character who is despicable and does something really horrific. And something happens with him, and I wound up sort of feeling bad for him, even though he did not deserve that at all. He had done terrible shit, but God. Rachel says, I was wondering if you would feel that way. Anya says, you're talking about Jackie's dad. Yeah, him being blackmailed. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, him blackmailing her dad, that was a really garbage move. He stole an election, and that's unforgivable. But yeah, the whole thing with the fucking kids being abused and the way that he handled that, I really appreciate so much, because it really, that was a situation in which there was nobody, like, what's the word I want? Those kids didn't have anybody in charge to protect them. He was it, you know? So in that respect, I feel like I'm sort of grasping at straws, because he was the only one that we could rely on to keep an eye on these parents and make sure nothing happened again. And I can't help but think, Meg turning up dead, like, Sheriff Lamb having had this run-in with her parents so recently, I wonder if he's going to feel like there's potential for foul play. I don't know whether he would or not. I really, like, this is complete conjecture, because I'm going to get to that part at the end, but I don't know if there was anything particularly suspicious about her death or not. I'm forgetting exactly how that went down. Let me see. Keith goes and talks to her. Boop, boop, boop. I'm trying to find exactly how he phrases it. There's something I need to tell you. I just got a call from the hospital. Meg died. A blood clot dislodged and made its way to her heart. So it's supposed to be natural death, accident. Maybe it's being made to look that way and it's not. Or maybe the show just like they needed Meg to be dead and they decided not to make her death a crime. They decided to have it be a natural death because she just needed to be out of the picture for whatever reason. It does seem super suspicious to me that Meg was saying to Veronica, if anything were to happen to me, because it felt like she knew she was in danger, and then all of a sudden here she turns up dead. That feels like quite a coincidence. But coincidences happen. So yeah, I don't really know. Like, I don't want Meg's death to be a crime. I don't want her to have been murdered, because that's a pretty cold-blooded thing to do. But I can't help but think that because of what this show is, her having died a natural death doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, not that it doesn't make sense, but it's not, like, exciting for the plot. You know, I have a feeling that that's not going to turn out to be what this is. But maybe it is. We'll see. I feel like I don't really know how hard it is to fake something like a blood clot. So it might be like if somebody has any sort of medical training and they're listening to me talk about how, well, maybe it was foul play, and they know that, like, if it's a blood clot, it's a blood clot. Nobody's mistaking, you know, poison for a blood clot or anything like that. Maybe it's impossible. But I just don't like her parents, and I really think that like, their determination to, like, take their daughter's child away and send it away to, like, a creepy Christian, like, boot camp is suspect enough that them killing her to, like, protect their own name isn't completely outside of what I would be willing to believe they'd do. Does that make sense? What I'm saying is, these bitches are crazy. And I wouldn't put anything past them, because I don't completely know what kind of crazy they are. Not entirely. They're locking a child in a closet at like overnight and making her write like hundreds of notebooks worth of remonstrative phrases. Maybe that crazy goes even deeper. I kind of don't want to know about it in a way, because I feel like this is just going to be bleak and bum me out. But Meg deserves so much better. Meg, like, honestly, that character, the treatment that she's gotten this season has been super weird. You know, it starts off with her just being so mean to Veronica for reasons that we don't understand at the time, that feel really like completely out of proportion to the way that she's behaving. And then we have the weird dream sequences with her and Duncan and her saying, "Only you can save me." And like, again, it feels like she knows that she's in actual danger, which makes me wonder, like, I keep saying if she was killed, I'm assuming that it's her parents, but what if the pregnancy wasn't Duncan's? What if it was somebody else's child and they killed her to keep her fucking quiet about it? You know, like, the baby is saved, so the baby is still alive, and I don't know what Veronica is going to do about that, because she made a promise for them to not be able to take the baby away and send it off somewhere. And Veronica is not, like, in a position of any sort of power. She's just a friend. So she's going to have to, like, really tap dance pretty hard if she wants to be able to keep this promise to her friend. I don't know how she could even possibly do it, but Veronica's very crafty and resourceful. I have no doubt that she'd be able to figure out something. But yeah, maybe it's something similar to, like, the story with, her mother's friend in high school, the deaf woman who got pregnant by a teacher, and the teacher wound up, like, dumping the baby. Maybe it's something like that, where it's a teacher that got Meg pregnant, or, you know, just another adult, something. You know, I had the really terrible theory that it was her own father, which I really don't want to go down that road, and I deeply hope is not the case, but it's not unheard of, unfortunately. I just have a lot of questions about all of how this is getting handled, and why, when she's saying to Duncan, like, "Only you can save me," what does that even mean? Because even if it is his child, "only you can save me" is not really a phrase that applies to that situation. Do y'all know what I mean? Like, "only you can help me," or "I can't do this without you," or something to that effect, where it's like, "I need you in my life," or, you know, you have to be part of this child's life," or something like that. Obviously not phrased that way because it's too close to, like, revealing the spoiler, but something like that would make a lot more sense than "only you can save me," which feels really specifically like she felt for sure that she was in danger, like she knew. So I don't know, guys, I'm really, like, I might be reading into this way too much, but I don't feel like this show has done that sort of thing and not had it pay off in that respect. So yeah, I don't know what to make of that. I really just, truth is, I want somebody to have done something that they actually get held responsible for by the end of this. Because we've got Aaron Eccles, who I really thought was going to get his comeuppance. But now that fucking evidence has been stolen, I can't even really rely on that. Like, I would not be surprised if the show has him being found, like, if not innocent, at least, like, not, like, time served or something. And he winds up being able to, like, go back out into the world and make Veronica's life hell, or make Logan's life hell, you know, something like that. So the loss of the evidence in that respect makes me very paranoid. And then there's, like, the dudes in this episode who this guy is, like, assuring us will be able to appeal and get off and not have any time in jail at all. And really what it is with Meg, if she just died of natural causes, there's nobody to be held responsible. And I need somebody to be held responsible for something. Just give me some bit of justice somewhere. You know, Lamb was able to, like, steal an election, and he's fucking wandering around talking to Keith about how, yeah, well, you know, I was the one that was elected. That's why the folks voted for me and chose me. No, they didn't, though. No, they didn't. So the fact that he is getting away with that and nobody knows about it yet. I just need somebody to get the comeuppance that they deserve. And so part of me wants there to be something more going on with Meg, because I'm hoping that her plot line at least would be resolved in that manner, with whoever is responsible actually getting what's coming to them. That may be overly optimistic, and I appreciate that. It might very well be. But I think that's part of why I'm trying to be like, it can't be natural causes, because then there's nobody to blame and I need to blame somebody. I need her parents, who are apparently only going to, like, the most that they're getting is Sheriff Lamb sitting outside their house in his squad car, making sure that they know he's there, but they're not getting, like, you know, arrested on child abuse charges or anything. Nothing's happening. So I think that's another part of it, is that I specifically want her parents to get what's coming to them. And in order for that to happen, they will have to do something really particularly terrible to be held accountable for. Because the type of child abuse that they're doing, which is locking a kid in a closet for hours and making her write lines in a book, is unfortunately not brutal enough for me to have any faith that they would be served with time or even, like, found guilty at all. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who would consider locking a kid in a closet to really not be that big a deal, unfortunately. So yeah, I think that I just have a lot of, like, I have a lot of rage in me in general about the fact that our justice system is garbage. And I want somebody to fucking get theirs, you know? Anya says, wasn't votes, it was tickets for the beefcake date thing. Still not cool, but not the same. Oh yeah, I guess he was, but oh, you know what? That's because that's the part that we assumed was true. And this is a thing that I'm kind of, like, not really putting past Lamb at this point. What he says about Keith, pulling over this guy for drunk driving and then not actually following protocol and following the dude home instead of actually arresting him so that he would have a DUI on his record and they would have known not to hire him. That is what I think I'm talking about when I say that he stole votes, because even though Keith never specifically says that didn't happen, I feel like I assumed Lamb made that up. And, you know, if he had, I'm sure Keith would say that didn't happen. So I think I'm actually, like, being unfair here because I don't like Lamb. And so the fact that he is, like, blackmailing this dude and extorting him for tickets to the fundraiser makes me go, oh, well, then he clearly did a bunch of other fucked up shit, like completely lied about Keith. But that's not actually fair. So he didn't steal votes. He just extorted fundraising money from somebody, which that's fair. As Anya says, still not cool, but not the same. Yeah, okay. All right. But yeah, the shade of it all. I wish so much, because guys, can we talk again really briefly about how Jackie is nowhere to be found? And I just wish that Veronica had turned in that tape of Lamb extorting her dad, even though I understand her not wanting to do that to somebody that Wallace is dating because he's her friend and he would hate that. But seriously, Jackie is nothing, and I don't care about protecting her at all. She's the worst. Wallace should not be with her because she's terrible, and I feel like he would see that. He's not an idiot. And honestly, even if it does hurt her, I don't care. She's awful. Fine, let it hurt her. You know, she took advantage of Veronica's murdered best friend to, like, make fun of her on on a TV show that everybody in the school watches. I feel like you do something that shady and low and crappy, I'm not defending you against anything ever again. That's just such a shitty thing to do to a person. And especially after, like, hiring Veronica for this wild goose chase case, like the whole thing. Yeah, I just really, really want Veronica to, like, expose Lamb on that one thing. Not that it would do any good now, but again, I just want people to get what's theirs. That's all I want. Justice is important to me, you know, guys, and it's just such a rare thing these days, and yada, yada, yada. Anyway, but that brings me to Wallace, who shows up at the end of this episode, because Veronica is sitting there crying after her father tells her about Meg, and it pretty much jumps from there to the New Year's Eve, like, in Times Square and the ball drop. I guess it's Times Square. I'm realizing now that, like, they're on the West Coast, so watching the Times Square ball drop probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense for them. But nevertheless, she's sitting with her dad, and he wants to go to bed because he's tired, and she's like, "You're going to miss the ball drop," and he's like, "I have seen this many, many times, and it has lost its appeal for me. I am going to go to bed." And just as he goes to bed, somebody knocks at the door. And who is it but Wallace, who somehow has turned up on her doorstep in the middle of the night and just says, "Happy New Year." And she almost starts crying and throws her arms around him and thinks to herself about how, even though she's been thinking that New Year is a fraud, and that we all think that, oh, it's a brand fresh new year and we're going to have a fresh start and everything's going to be better. We always fool ourselves into thinking that, and it's never true. But with Wallace showing up, she's feeling a little bit more optimistic about it. And it's kind of like, all right, maybe things are going to be okay after all. And I have to admit, I want to know what's been going on with Wallace, but having him come back in this way feels super duper weird to me. Am I alone in that? Like, first of all, there's a weird vibe to it that, like, he just got home, and I have a hard time believing that if he were to get home to his mom after disappearing the way that he did, that she would let him out of her sight to come back and talk to Veronica. Like, if I were his mom, I'd be like, "Oh, really? You think you're going to come home and then you're just going to get to go out again and, like, leave the house to see your friends?" No, that's not how this is going down. But also, he seems like so excited. The energy that he has showing back up again is very unexpected. I thought he was going to be sad. I don't know what I expected. But he just is a lot more, like, upbeat overall. And acting like, "Oh, I was just on vacation. Whatever." Like, she's been writing to you practically every day, and we have heard from her that you barely replied at all. But now you're going to show back up and behave like everything is okay and that this wasn't, like, a huge deal, that you just up and left with your estranged father out of nowhere. The whole way is just like, this is just such a weird, I don't know what to make of it. We'll see, I guess, what he winds up telling her. But I thought if he wound up coming back that it was going to seem like it was either against his will, that he had kind of a shit time while he was with his dad, or something happened that made him realize that he had made a mistake. I don't know. So for him to turn up all smiley like this, I was just really surprised. Rachel says, "I used to watch the Times Square ball drop from the West Coast." Oh, no shit. So that is a thing. I'm surprised. So, okay, let me ask you this, Rachel. If you would watch it, do you watch it when it's happening for them? Or do you watch it when it's happening, like, do you watch a taped version of it that's, what's the word? Lined up with your own time. Because I'm wondering, Rachel says live. Okay, so you watch a ball drop like a couple of hours before yours. Okay, 9 p.m. Huh, interesting. All right, why not? I guess, because see, I don't have cable, and I haven't had cable for years and years and years. And I guess it is a thing for a lot of people when they watch TV on New Year's. There's like the ball drops around the world. So there's ones from like, you know, Paris and Australia and all of this stuff. So I guess it makes sense to watch the East Coast ball drop. Makes as much sense as watching one from an entirely other country. Rachel says basically celebrate every hour until our actual midnight. Okay. That's kind of fun. All right. Because, yeah, I was like watching that and I was like, but then I thought, I haven't heard, and I'm sure that there's a ball drop in like LA or something, or maybe a San Francisco one, right? Like, but it's not something that I ever hear about. And I guess it wouldn't be because it would happen at 3 a.m. for me, and I'm usually asleep by then. I'm old now, so I went to bed at like 10 this year. Yeah, that's a good thing too, because then you get to watch a ball drop within the United States before your time, so you get the satisfaction of it, but you don't have to stay up late to see it. And I could see that being helpful. I think there was a year, and I'm trying to remember when it was, but it was a few years ago. I can't even remember if I was with Owen or if I was with Brendan. But yeah, I just went to bed at like 10 o'clock. I was like, screw this. I don't need to stay up and watch the ball drop. Who cares? There does come a point where it's like, exactly what Veronica says. We keep fooling ourselves into think things are going to be better this year. And why do we believe that? Rachel says we have fireworks going off the Space Needle at midnight, which is pretty cool. That is pretty cool, actually. Huh. Okay. I could get down with that. Oh, I'm over time. I didn't even realize that. All right, guys. Oh, there's ask a question at the bottom. Hold on. I'm going to click that. What do you think will happen to the baby? Asks Agnes. Oh, I don't even want to think about it, Agnes. Like, that's the thing. I think her parents are, of course, going to want to send this baby away. But, like, Veronica promised to keep them from doing that. And I just don't see how she can keep that promise. The only thing I could see is, like, investigating the place that Meg says her parents want to send it. And making sure that they are exposed for being really abusive and like putting them out of business. But that doesn't mean that her parents aren't going to be able to just find another equally terrible place. So, I don't know. Yeah. But I hope that she's able to do something. I just don't want that baby with Meg's parents, basically. That's what it comes down to for me, is that as long as they don't get their hands on that child, I think it's better for everybody. But it's unlikely that anybody else is going to get custody of the baby. Like, you know, she's going to have to... Can you imagine if Veronica took custody of it? That'd be something. I'm trying to think of who's, like, in a position to do that would actually want to, but I can't think of anybody. But anyway, all right, so that's my theorizing done. Guys, I think the next episode is going to be a live watch. Let me double check on this real quick. I feel like it wasn't until the 21st. Episode 11. Oh yeah, it is. Spoil Me. Yep, that one had a live watch, right? Oh man. And it's not for 2 weeks, guys. I'm going to die. I have to wait so long to find out what happens next. Oh, my God. But the plus side of that is that I get some extra time to catch up with posting all the old Spoil Me episodes so that once it's, like, rolled around, people are going to be able to actually join me for this one. Because the live watch is going to be on the 21st. Tuesday, May 21st at 3:30 p.m. on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/unspoiledpod. And then the actual recording for it will be at 3:30 p.m. on Friday the 3rd. Or Friday the 24th, sorry. I'm looking at the top of this calendar. So, yeah. Rachel says, sorry, I have to wait. It was the earliest I could book. Yeah, I have been being booked up. I actually had to take some time off because the program I had been using allowed me to be overbooked. I think 8 out of 10 days this month. I'm doing more episodes than I'm supposed to. I am being crushed a little bit throughout May. So I took the first week of June off completely because I was just like, I am going to need to rest. This is crazy. And I changed my schedule up so that this will not be possible to happen again. So hopefully I figured out and cracked the code and managed to keep it from happening. But yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't believe how far out things have been booked. So, all right. Good for you, says Agnes. Thank you. Appreciate it. And, all right, guys. Well, I will be seeing you soon with a new live watch. So that'll be fun. I love those. Those are really fun to do. So join me then. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.